Welcome to the Math 107 video on statistics, part 1, on finding the probability in a normal distribution. We are going to use the empirical rule to find the probabilities given a z-score, either above, below, or between z-scores. And you can see here we're going to try and find the probability that the z-score is greater than 1 on this first one. Z-score is greater than 1. So we'll come over here. We'll say now z-score is greater than 1. The z-score of 1 means it's one standard deviation from the right of the mean, and the mean, of course, is the top here. So a z-score of 1 and greater than 1 would be we're looking for the area to the right here. So there's several approaches to doing that. Using the empirical rule, I want us to scroll down and take a look at a little more specifically. So that is this area to the right. And we know that the 68, 95, 99.7 rule splits this normal distribution curve into those parts where it's one standard deviation to either side, or 2 or 3 standard deviations to either side of the mean. Now, we can take half of all those percents and go from the mean out to one standard deviation, or that would be 34% instead of the whole thing being 68. Or from the mean out to 2 standard deviations would be 47.5%, or half of 95. And if you go from the mean out to 3 standard deviations, that's going to be 49.85%, or half of 99.7. So similarly, of course, we get that to the right of the mean as well. So if we want to know this area, this is the area in question. That is the area that would give us the probability of a z-score being greater than 1, right? We want to know the probability of the z-score being greater than 1. And keep in mind that we do know that this normal curve is symmetric, so that's 50% of the data. 50% of the z-score should be to the right of the mean. And it tells us that if this is 34 going in this direction, it should also be 34% going in this direction. So that 34% corresponds with that z-score of 1. Now, of course, we don't want this area. We don't want this value. We want to know this amount. Well, from 34, if it's 34 from the middle to the 1 standard deviation, and it's 50% the entire way out, then what's the remainder here would be 50% minus that 34%, which would then be 16% using the empirical rule. So let's go to the next problem, where it's a standard deviation of two standard deviations, from the mean, and we want the probability that the z-score is less than 2 standard deviations from the mean. Probability that z is less than 2 standard deviations. Now that's a positive 2, so that's to the right. So we come in, we'll come back and look at this graph. So in this one, we want this area from 2, but this is going less than, so we want all this region this way, all of that area. Well, if we go back up and take a look, the part of it is, before we do that, clearly this portion is 50%. That probability of being from the mean to the left is 50%. So really the question is, what's this area between 0 and 2? And we know that if we come up and look at that empirical rule, the graph here of the empirical rule, and that's from here 34% to here, and then 13.5. So that's 34 for the first one, and then 13.5 is the next section, so that should be 47.5, which we have up here. So we know that to the left it would be 47.5, so it's symmetric, so this region on the right hand side is also going to be 47.5%. And so the probability that the z-score is to the left of 2, then that would be the 50 plus the 47.5, 0.5, sorry, which would be 97.5%. 0.5. Lastly, using the empirical rule, I'll just remind you that in the empirical rule we need integer values, that is no decimal, no values between full standard deviations to the right or left. So this is from 1 standard deviation from the left of the mean to 3 standard deviations to the right of the mean. So if we come and take a look at this picture, 1 to the left would be right here, and 3 to the right would be right here. So again, this is a fairly easy problem as well, because we're going from -1, that's over here, to +3, that's over here. And so if we use these values that we have up above, from -1 to the mean, just this section in here, we already know that's 34%. And then we have to add on this region over here to the right. And what would that be? If you go back up to the top, all the way, that's 49.85 from 0 to 3 units to the left or the right. Remember, this is symmetric. So this is 49.85%. We'll check that, right? 49.85. And so we just add the 34 and 49.8. That would be 34, and that's going to be 80. So that is problem 3. The probability that the z-score is between -1 and +3. Now, problems 4 and 5 we cannot do using the empirical rule. So I'll make the next video will be how to use the program that you're all will be available to you. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video.